killed my mom. I scattered flower seeds on her bloody corpse. A few months later, little flowers bloomed all over Mom's body. She was so beautiful. Unlike me, a teenager, always in dirty clothes, called a mangy dog by the men in town. Mom's face was covered in blood. She was a little scared, her momentum noticeably weaker. Bastard, I'm your mother. Put down the needle. Mom, will you be patient? I touched her hair and smiled as I poured the flower seeds into her mouth. Soon, you won't hurt, and then you'll feel comfortable. Actually, I lied to Mom. No one is painless. When those men in town touched my crotch, I was in so much pain that tears and blood flowed out together. But they grabbed my hair and laughed. Little beggar, soon you won't hurt, and then you'll feel comfortable. I'm not comfortable. I'm in so much pain. I cried and crawled home. Mom, Uncle John touched my crotch. My mom slapped me in the face. What are you running for? She pinched my eyelids and said fiercely, Bastard, I adopted you to let Uncle John touch you. Then she shoved me hard into Uncle John's arms and said flatteringly, Old John, my daughter is very tender. All the men in town want her. The mayor even offered 1,000 yuan, but I didn't give her to him. I let you break her in because I want you to give me the secret recipe for having a boy. Gulp, gulp. Maybe I poured the flower seeds too hard. My mother coughed and spit out a lot of seeds and blood. Mom, isn't that a waste? I was a little embarrassed and sealed her mouth with tape. Mom, we have to have good saving habits, right? My mom hated waste the most. She made me cook just enough for her and Dad. I eat pig food. Pig food is really hard to eat. It's a disgusting mixture of undercooked rotten vegetable leaves and potato vines, but no matter how bad it was, it couldn't compare to the hunger in my stomach. I often competed with the pigs for food in the trough. The sow at home was in heat, and it got annoyed and gnawed at my face with its smelly mouth. A large chunk of my skin was bitten off, blood gushing out. I was in excruciating pain, which attracted my mother. She looked left and right at the pigs in the pigsty, made sure that the pigs were fine, and then gave me a blank look. The sow can have piglets and sell them for money. What are you robbing the pigs for? Wait until the pigs finish eating and then you can eat the rest. Since then, my face has been ruined, and the men in town have called me an ugly monster, a mangy dog. Once while eating, I saw a little bit of white rice fall out of my mother's mouth. My eyes lit up, the kind of craving that makes your heart itch. As soon as she finished eating, I couldn't wait to grab the few grains of white rice on the ground and stuff them into my mouth. As soon as the white rice flowed into my throat, my mother kicked me in the heart and spit it out. You bastard, I picked you up to be a dog. How can a dog eat human food? Bastard. Wait, your dad? My mother's mouth was covered in blood. The blood soaked the tape. There were faint signs of loosening. Her whimpering, buzzing sound came. When your dad comes, let all the men in town kill you. Wait for my dad. I touched my mother's hair. Dad can't come. He is waiting for you below. Last night I killed my dad. Last night, I was digging out the rotten food in the corner of the trough with my fingers and stuffing it into my mouth when Dad suddenly barged in. He was drunk, reeking of alcohol, muttering, That bitch has not been pregnant. At first glance, she is a barren woman. It is better for me to just do you directly, let you get pregnant. Alas, I picked you up at that time, just to sell you for a price, so that I can use it as a dowry for my future son. It's just a pity that your face was ruined by pigs and can't be sold at a good price. He giggled again and pouted at me, But, little beggar, don't be sad. Dad won't dislike you. Dad will love you. When the time comes, you will give me a baby boy and we will kick that barren woman out. I don't want men to love me. Their love for me always leaves me bloodied, so I have an extreme fear of love. That night, I lost my mind and hit Dad on the head with a stone next to me. Don't look at Dad's obesity, but he was very weak. I smashed him to the ground at once. The blood from his forehead kept flowing and flowing. You, little beggar. You, me? What about me? I seemed to have made a man bleed. Looking at Dad's bright red blood on my hands, I felt an unprecedented joy. I finally understood why the men in town always told me that I wouldn't hurt later, and then I would feel very comfortable. Making others bleed is really a very, very comfortable thing. Finally, Dad was smashed to pieces by me. The pig next to him woke up to the smell of blood, walked towards Dad shaking, and nibbled. I completely fell in love with the smell of blood. It smelled smelly sweet. Exciting, exhilarating. So at night, I took a pack of rat poison mixed with sugar and poured it into the kettle. It was a hot summer day. My mom was fat and she loved to drink water. When she finished drinking the water and was taking a nap at noon, I smashed her hands with a hammer. Then, I poked her face with a needle and thread. "Mom, I'll take you to see Dad." I tugged at Mom's arm. "You've always wanted to have a boy. Now I'll put you and Dad in the pigsty to sleep every day. You'll definitely be able to have a boy." My mother was like a fish out of water, still struggling on the verge of death. I want to kill you." I rolled my eyes and slapped her hard in the face. "Boo-hoo, Mom. I'm so scared. Don't hurt me, okay?" My mom's face was so fat that there were 3 layers of wrinkles on her face. It felt extremely comfortable to slap her face, bouncy, and with the kind of reverberation. I was excited and wanted to give her a few more slaps, but I heard Uncle John's howling voice not far away. "Lisa, lend me the little beggar. My son is back from out of town. He said he's not feeling well this year and can't get a woman. You hurry up and bring the little beggar out and let my son do it twice. Uncle John is coming." I was a little stunned, a little nervous and excited. I stood up and quickly locked the front door. Then I dragged my mother to the pigsty. Bang, bang, bang. The door was knocked by Uncle John. "Lisa, why did you lock the door in broad daylight?" Uncle John was a little impatient, his voice getting louder and louder. "You're not ashamed to be doing that in broad daylight? You two!" Through the door, Uncle John chattered, "Hurry up and open the door, okay? Otherwise, it will be too late and my son will be unhappy." I took a bucket of water and washed the blood off the cement floor. My mother didn't bleed much, so it was easy to clean up. "Lisa, you two hurry up." Uncle John was obviously angry when he saw that no one was paying attention to him. He kicked the door hard and snorted, "My son got baby oil from outside. This oil is from a newborn baby girl, burned on a fire, dripping out of the body oil. This is a good thing. As long as you drop a little of this thing, guarantee that there will be no more female fetuses. Pregnant with iron is a boy. Coming." I was afraid that Uncle John would be impatient and run away. Without even bothering to wipe the wet floor clean, I ran to open the door. "Uncle John, here I am." As soon as Uncle John saw me, he couldn't wait to touch my crotch and asked, "Why did you just open the door? Where's your mom?" I lowered my head, but my eyes looked in the direction of the pigsty in the corner. "My dad and my mom are sleeping." "Okay, hurry up, come with me." Uncle John stopped talking halfway through. He had just touched my crotch and felt specks of blood. Oops, it was Mom's blood on me. Uncle John grinned, revealing his yellow teeth. "Why, you're bleeding? Blood? Boo-hoo, Uncle John, how am I bleeding?" I cried, grabbed his hand and pulled him towards the bedroom. "Uncle John, will you help me check? The little beggar is bleeding. The little beggar is scared." "All right." Uncle John hesitated for a moment and muttered, "Anyway, I'm fast. I'm sure it won't delay my son." After the bedroom door closed, I fought back a smile. "Uncle John, you sit on the bed so you can see more carefully." Uncle John did as he was told. "Little beggar, why are you so obedient today?" "Because I want Uncle John to be comfortable too." As I spoke, I took out scissors from my pocket and stabbed him directly in the eye. "Ah!" Uncle John cried out in pain. "You dog, how dare you stab me?" I ignored him and stabbed him in the other eye with another pair of scissors. "Help! Help!" Uncle John screamed his lungs out. But there were only a few families in the town, and they were far apart, and even if he shouted his throat out, no one would answer him. Uncle John obviously realized this too. He was very fast. His reaction was also very strong. His tone suddenly weakened. "Little beggar." "Yes, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You let me go." "That won't work." I picked up the hammer hidden under the bed and smashed his hands and feet. Uncle John, like a turtle, lay limply on the bed and wailed, "Little beggar, don't kill me, you kill. You are a girl, you can't escape from this town. My son will bury you alive, marry you as a ghost, dig you out of the ground, and make body oil." I frowned. Uncle John was too noisy. I had to plug his mouth with something. The flower seeds at home were all in my mother's mouth. So, what should I use? I looked around and saw dates on the table next to me. Uncle John, stop talking. Eat something to replenish your body. Uncle John was covered in blood, but he still crawled and twisted. No, I don't want to, little beggar. I beg you, you let me this old thing go. These dates, I could only watch my parents eat them. I myself have never dared to eat them, but I took them for you to eat. You see how good I am to you. I muttered to myself, taking the dates and feeding them to his mouth. Uncle John, you eat more, you said? Eating dates can nourish the yin and yang. Uncle John kept his mouth shut and refused to open it. Why aren't you eating? I was a little puzzled. Do you think the dates in my house are not delicious? A few seconds later, I figured out why. Uncle John, you like to eat yin dates the most? You like to eat the dates grown in the human body, right? I giggled and stuffed the dates hard into Uncle John's rotten flesh arms. You have such a picky taste, but it doesn't matter. I will satisfy you. Ah! The dates were stuffed into Uncle John's arm. He grinned in pain, his face pale. Little beggar, give me a break, you kill me. Ah, it hurts so much. Uncle John, are you in pain? Since you are in pain, then I will not force you. I sighed, thinking that I was really a good boy. Uncle John used to put dates on me and I was in so much pain. But Uncle John would not pity me. He laughed and said, the more painful the female vessel, the better the aphrodisiac effect of the dates. I took the date stained with his blood from his arm. Uncle John, this date is a blood date grown from your body. You should eat it while it is fresh. Uncle John's teeth were still clenched and blood was flowing out. Uncle John, don't be shy. I pried open his mouth with pliers and poured the bloody dates into his mouth. The little beggar feeds you blood dates so that you can eat your fill and your yang will be fully replenished. Ah! Uncle John kept yelling. His mouth was so small that only 5 grains were stuffed in and it was full. I was a little annoyed, took a wooden stick and directly stabbed it into his mouth. Soon, Uncle John's stomach also visibly grew larger. It looked eerie. I shook his body, constantly asking him, Uncle John, I fed you so many dates. Are you happy now? Are you happy? Uncle John seemed to be dead. He didn't answer me. I'm a little sad. Boo-hoo. The uncle who had been touching me since I was a child died. As I cried my heart out, there was a sudden scratching sound from outside the window. My body stiffened. Was someone out there watching me feed Uncle John dates? I hurriedly covered Uncle John's body with a quilt before looking up at the window. Who is it? My voice suddenly disappeared. On the window pane, there was a blue, twisted face with wide-open eyeballs. That face was Uncle John's. But clearly Uncle John was lying by the bed, having been fed dates to death by me. I was scared. So frightened that I trembled all over and immediately knelt down. Uncle John, don't come to me. The little beggar didn't hurt you. You like to eat dates. I fed you dates to eat. How can you come to me? I muttered for a while, and the more I talked, the more reasonable I felt. I was so nice to Uncle John that his ghost appeared, certainly not to trouble me but to repay my kindness. Thinking of this, I was not afraid at once. I looked up at the window again. There were no more faces outside, but on the window was clearly printed the mark of a face pressed against the glass. I lifted the quilt again. Uncle John was still lying there, his eyes wide open and his mouth wide open. You sleep well, I said. In the evening, I will bury you under the jujube tree. You like to eat dates the most. I will bury you under it. You will have endless dates to eat. Then, I left the room and hurried to the pigsty. I don't know how my mom is doing now. In the pigsty, my mother's body was warm, but she was only exhaling, not inhaling. Mom, Uncle John came to me just now and said his son needed me. I gently stroked my mother's hair and continued. Mom, I think Uncle John's son likes me, otherwise it would be impossible to ask for me by name. I want to dress myself up beautifully and take you to see him. Do you think it's okay? My mother did not speak. She did not speak. That is, she agreed. Thank you, Mom. Mom always beat me and scolded me when she was alive. But now that she was about to die, she acquiesced to whatever I did. That's great. I lifted my mother's hand and pulled hard at her silver bracelet. "Mom, I have to dress myself up beautifully. You lend me your bracelet to wear." My mother was a little fat. The bracelet stuck to her wrist, and it took me a lot of effort to pull it down. With the bracelet on, I couldn't wait to run in the direction of Uncle John's house. I can't keep Uncle John's son, Jack, waiting too long. It usually took 10 minutes to walk, and I finally caught up in less than 3 minutes. But Jack was obviously impatient. In his room, I heard my best friend make a babbling sound. My best friend is a fool with a red face and hemangiomas all over her face. She was very pitiful. She was a fool. She didn't look good, and no one taught her to speak, so she could only make babbling noises. But she wasn't a fool from birth. Because she was a girl, she was pressed into the water by her father, frozen with a cold and fever, and burned her brain. Her father felt that her family had a throne to inherit, so he insisted on preparing to make her mother pregnant with a boy while her mother was in confinement. As a result, her mother bled heavily and died during her next pregnancy. Her father stopped caring about her, went to the city to work, saying that he would kidnap another woman to give birth to a boy for him. Since then, my best friend, the little fool, has been wandering around town alone. The men in the town often gave her a bite to eat and touched her. But this time, I misunderstood. Through the window, I saw Jack covering his best friend's mouth with his hand. Little fool, you can't blame me. If you want to blame the women outside for being too smart. Now they can't be hooked back. I can't help it. I'm short of money. Little fool, when you were alive, your father didn't fancy you. He thought you were a girl, and he couldn't sell you at a good price. But after you die, it will be different. These days, sometimes dead people are more valuable than living people. When you die, I will pair you with a handsome young man as a ghost marriage, and then I will burn more paper money for you. Abba, Abba. The little fool struggled constantly, screaming in horror, Abba! Damn it, shame on you. Jack slapped her hard. If it wasn't for the fact that the corpse can't be damaged, otherwise it wouldn't be sold at a high price, otherwise I would have smashed you to pieces with a hammer. The little fool was slapped to the ground, immediately got up again, and tried to escape from the house. But Jack grabbed her hair directly. I'll let you die now. Can you escape? I'm so angry. Very angry. Jack, since you called me here, you can't hurt my best friend again. He's so unethical. I'm going to punish him. Brother Docky, are you there? I knocked on the door of his room. Uncle John asked me to come here. He said you would give me something delicious to eat. Damn it, don't come early, don't come late. Jack took out the tape, directly sealed the little fool's mouth, and then tied the little fool's hands and feet neatly with a hemp rope. Finally, the little fool was kicked under the bed by him. Come in, little beggar, I have delicious hemp candy here. Jack opened the door. He looked thin, but his face was full of pockmarks, which looked disgusting. But now I didn't care so much. I smiled and stepped into the threshold, reaching out to him. Brother, I want to eat candy. Okay, I'll give you candy later. Jack closed the door impatiently, felt in his trouser pocket, made a fist, and smiled extremely wretchedly. Open it. I did as I was told, prying his fingers apart little by little. It was empty. Slap. At this time, Jack slapped me directly on the face. Damn, you came here when you spoiled my good deed, and you still want to eat? How can you not eat you to death? I was knocked to the ground by a slap. Hey, you girl, you don't look bad. Jack suddenly squatted down, reached out and covered the large piece of skin bitten off by the pig on my face with hair, and studied it carefully for a while. Wipe your face with white powder, and then cover it with hair to make it look like a dead person. The price of a ghost marriage is definitely higher than that of that little fool. You want to make me look like a dead person? I cried in fear. Brother, please don't. Hey, little beggar, as long as you are obedient, I won't kill you. Jack laughed again. He was like a gray wolf, opened his hands, arched his body, and rushed towards me. Brother, look what that is. I suddenly pointed behind him. There's someone behind you. Who? Jack turned his head and looked back. At this moment, I took out the kitchen knife from behind and slashed at the back of his neck with incomparable precision. Jack is dead. Can't be Docky anymore. I pulled the little fool out from under the bed, untied her hemp rope, and tore off the tape from her mouth. Little fool, I'm leaving. I'm leaving this town. The little fool was already stupid. She didn't understand the meaning of my words. She just held my hand and kept rubbing against my arms. I'm really leaving. I put my silver bracelet on her wrist. I didn't lie to Jack just now. I really saw something. It was his father. It was Uncle John. Uncle John is dead. He came back to me. If I don't leave here, I will be caught by Uncle John. Abba, Abba. The little fool leaned in my arms. Her voice lowered a little. I looked down. She actually fell asleep in my arms. She must be dreaming of delicious food, her saliva rubbed all over my clothes. Hey, you can't go. Suddenly I heard Uncle John's voice. Probably because his throat was full of dates, his voice was extremely deep and unpleasant. At this time, Uncle John still maintained the appearance before his death, opened his mouth and stuck out his long black and purple tongue and said, "Little beggar, I like to eat dates. You promised me you have to bury me under the jujube tree." Okay, since I said that, I have to do it. I gently woke up the little fool and took her back to my house. After only a while, there was a stench in the air at home. The little fool ran out and retched when she smelled the smell and refused to run in again. I had no choice but to deal with Uncle John alone. Under the jujube tree, I dug a hole with a hoe, and as soon as I buried it, I heard the roar of a motorcycle. I hurriedly prostrated myself and watched intently. The motorcycle was chasing a girl. The girl ran into a low-S pit in a panic. She looked so funny hiding, like an ostrich with its head buried in the ground, but in fact, most of its body was exposed. I couldn't help but pull the little fool and point in the direction of the girl. "Look, someone is arresting someone." The little fool followed my gaze to the lowest slope. Abba, Abba. Over there on a mound of dirt, the little girl had been caught. She struggled and screamed. I suddenly couldn't laugh anymore. There were only 3 girls in our whole town. One is me, one is a little fool, and the other is this girl. Her name is Catherine, about my age. She was traded for by her biological parents. I've always envied her. I feel that she lives more happily than me and the little fool, and she can eat half full every day. But why today? She didn't want to live a good life. Why did she want to run away? Dare to run. I raised you to be my son's wife. Catherine's adoptive father grabbed her and beat her legs hard with a stick. After a while, her legs became limp and she couldn't use her strength. Abba, Abba. The little fool suddenly cried out in anxiety. This sound caught the attention of Uncle John over there. He looked up at me and shouted at me, "What are you looking at? Help me." Catherine raised her hand high, shouted at us with all her might. "Little beggar, save me. His son is dead. He wants me to be buried with him. Save me. You are my son's wife, so it is only right and proper for you to be buried with my son?" Catherine's adoptive father tied her hands with a rope, tied her under the motorcycle, and dragged her home. The husband is dead, the wife has to be buried with him. By the same token, if the wife dies, the husband must be buried with her. But why did the little fool's mother die, but her father not only did not want to be buried with her, but also went outside to find a woman? I was very puzzled and shouted, "Uncle John, don't go yet." Uncle John didn't even look at me and sat down on the motorcycle. I was anxious and hurriedly said, "Today there is a happy event in my family," my parents said. "Tonight we will have a banquet. You come to the banquet." Uncle John paused. "What kind of banquet?" "My parents are going to marry me to Jack." I put my palms on both sides of my mouth and made a trumpet shape. "My parents said that the wedding will be held tonight. You must come to the banquet." In our case, the most important banquets are wedding banquets and funerals for the dead. Most people will attend these 2 banquets invited by the host family. Sure enough, Catherine's adoptive father agreed. "I'll deal with this little girl and then I'll go." I hurriedly said, "Uncle John, let Catherine go first. My parents said let her be my bridesmaid and it will be more festive. Don't learn from the people in the city. She is a dying person. What kind of bridesmaid should she be? Isn't she afraid of bad luck?" Before I could say anything, the motorcycle roared to life. A large amount of black exhaust gas sprayed on Catherine on the ground, and at the same time covered her pleading and screaming. "Abba! Abba!" The little fool yelled again. I touched her hair. "Little fool, I always keep my word, so I can't leave tonight. I have to cook a meal for Uncle John." The sky was already getting dark. I took the little fool's hand and walked home without looking back. I want to eat too. I don't know when, but Jack actually appeared in front of me. He tilted his neck, staring straight at me. "You're going to marry me. You're going to be my wife." Now I want you to feed me. I want to eat meat. Lots and lots of meat. When I got to the door, I saw my parents. Their faces were pale, their eyeballs were bulging, and they looked at me gloomily. Little beggar, why are you so cheap? You even rushed to marry Jack for free without asking for a penny? My mother was about to hit me as she spoke. Do you still want to save face? Slap. My mom slapped me in the face. It hurts a little. Strange, I used to hear the old people in the town say that ghosts are illusory and cannot actually hit people. But why? My face feels buzzing from being slapped. I turned my head to look at the little fool and asked her, "Did you see my parents?" The little fool giggled and responded to me with babble. My mother became proud and pretended to hit me again. "You can't kill me now, can you? Little beggar, hurry up and go to the pigsty and turn me over. My body is covered with bugs. It's itchy to death meat." "Shut up!" I took the needle and wanted to prick her. "If you don't shut up for me, I'll sew your mouth shut." My mother was scared, and her figure disappeared immediately. My father looked at me coldly. "Little beggar, you are mine. How can you marry Jack without authorization? Roll for me." I grabbed the stone and smashed it on his head. "I'm about to cook a wedding feast. Don't make trouble for me." I went back to the house and hurriedly lit the fire and put on the firewood. Catherine's adoptive father's house was not too far from mine. I had to get the food ready before he arrived. In the countryside, the most high-end is the pork feast. I was too weak to kill the pigs in the pigsty. I had to replace the fresh pork with a string of bacon hanging from the kitchen beam. The bacon was rich and meaty. Every night when I slept in the pigsty, the smell of bacon would penetrate my nostrils, but I never dared to look at it. It was so fragrant, I was afraid that I would lose control and take a big bite. But now, Catherine's adoptive father is in for a treat. "Stop cutting the meat." I don't know when my mother appeared again. The bacon I cut was like cutting it on her body. She grimaced and scolded me, spitting stars. "You are a dog. How can a dog eat human food?" I glanced at her and calmly put the bacon into the pot. The spicy peppers and the dark bacon met in the fire, mixed together, and gave off an extremely strong aroma. I swallowed uncontrollably. The little fool was also hungry, pulling my clothes and kept shouting, "Abba! Abba!" I shoveled out a piece with a spatula and put it on the edge of the pot. "Don't eat too fast, you must eat slowly. There's not much bacon, otherwise it will not be enough for Uncle John." The little fool opened her mouth wide and swallowed it directly. She really wasn't afraid of being hot. She stared at me eagerly, wanting me to give her another piece. I gave it. "This is the last piece. You can't eat anymore." Immediately I poured seasonings and sugar into the dish. The advent of seasonings made the dish even more fragrant. The little fool was drooling. She didn't care about the heat. She even reached into the pot and grabbed a piece and was about to put it in her mouth. "No," I immediately opened her and the bacon fell to the ground. I felt a little flustered, glared at her and said, "Can't eat it." The mother standing behind me giggled. "Eat! Why don't you let her eat? It's so delicious. Isn't it a waste not to eat?" The little fool looked at me aggrievedly, tears falling down. I served the bacon from the pot. The chicken tied to the ankles and dying next to it nodded, swallowed the bacon into its stomach. I snorted coldly, took the kitchen knife, raised the knife, and dropped it on the chicken's neck. At the same time, the voices of my parents, Uncle John and Jack, kept ringing in my ears. "Little beggar, you killed my chicken, I'm going to kill you. Little beggar, give me a baby boy. Little beggar, I want to eat some bacon too. Little beggar, my neck hurts so much. Wrap it up for me with tape and don't let me bleed anymore." I ignored all their words. "I'm going to make a wedding banquet. This is my own wedding. I must treat it well." The roar of a motorcycle sounded as the sun went down. Catherine's adoptive father walked over aggressively. "Little beggar, why is there no one in your house? Where are your parents?" I gave the little fool a big steamed bun, hid her in the cupboard, and told her not to come out. After that, I randomly smeared some chicken blood on my mouth as lipstick. After I dressed up a little, I brought a plate of bacon and said, "The fortune teller said that it is more appropriate for me and Brother Jack to get married at 10 o'clock tonight, so everyone is not here yet." Catherine's adoptive father picked up a piece from the plate and stuffed it into his mouth. "Call Jack here. I'll teach him how to be a groom tonight on the wedding night." I lowered my head shyly. Catherine's adoptive father. Why didn't Catherine come? She's dead. Catherine's adoptive father clapped his hands. I tied her behind the motorcycle and dragged her home. She died just now and the back of her head is bald. She's dead. I drew out my voice and pushed the bacon towards him. Catherine's adoptive father, you eat more. Little beggar, stop doing stupid things, run away. A weak voice suddenly appeared. I looked up and saw Catherine outside the threshold, hanging her head and shouting at me, go away, go away. Hey, little beggar, my wife is here to accompany me. Don't you think my wife is beautiful? A boy appeared beside Catherine. He was drenched, his skin swollen and pale. At this moment, he was holding Catherine's arm tightly. Wife, let's go back to sleep. I lowered my head and asked Catherine's adoptive father, how did your son die? Gone swimming. Catherine's adoptive father smacked his lips and sighed. Oh, my only son is gone. I have to go out and get another woman to have a boy for me. Catherine's adoptive father, you must have worked so hard to go out of town to find a woman. I turned around, went into the kitchen, and brought another bowl of chicken soup to the table. You must drink some soup to nourish your body. In our place, meat is rarely eaten. Catherine's adoptive father naturally made no mercy, chewing loudly. Soon, his belly swelled up. After eating until he was full, he touched his stomach, picked his teeth with his fingers, and asked, What's going on, little beggar? Why are you the only one in the whole house? Where is Jack? Where are your parents? I couldn't help laughing. You'll see them later. Catherine's adoptive father seemed to realize something was wrong. Go and call them. My parents are feeding the pigs in the pigsty now. I pointed in the direction of the pigsty. Go and see them. Catherine's adoptive father stood up shakingly, but after taking a few steps, he staggered and almost fell. What's wrong? Why can't I stand still? Because you will see my parents soon. At the corner, I pushed him hard. Catherine's adoptive father fell to the ground and happened to meet the eyes of my parents lying in the pigsty. Ah, your parents are dead. Catherine's adoptive father's face turned pale with fright, and he scrambled to his feet. But I found that my body and mind were as if my heart was burning, and I gradually felt uncomfortable. I took out the knife and stabbed him directly. Catherine's adoptive father, didn't you want to see my parents? Why are you scared now? Bastard. Catherine's adoptive father covered the wound and got up and fled. I went completely crazy, like a cat catching a mouse. Every time I caught him, I would stab him hard. Catherine's adoptive father is also dead. I called the little fool out. She finished eating the whole steamed bun and wanted to eat the chicken soup on the table, but I reprimanded her. We have to leave here quickly. That night, I took the little fool and ran outside, running and running. When I ran out of the town, I couldn't help but turn my head back. There are so many people standing behind them. My dad, my mom, Uncle John, Jack, Catherine, and Catherine's dead adoptive father. Except for Catherine. Their expressions were all ferocious. Little beggar, stop running, come back. Eventually, the little fool and I escaped the deserted town. We were like starving stray dogs, greedily rummaging through the trash cans in the town for food. Instant noodles, rotten pork, etc. In the trash can are really delicious, enough to feed me and the little fool. We ate our fill. Once, when I was picking up something to eat, a beautiful young lady appeared in front of me. She was full of distress. Little friend, the things in the trash can are all bacteria. You can't eat them. She asked again, where are your parents? I giggled and said, my parents are behind you. I'm not lying, although I escaped the town. But my parents, Uncle John, those people I killed, appeared in front of my eyes all the time, but I'm not afraid at all. As long as I can eat enough, I am not afraid of anything. The young lady turned her head, but saw that there was nothing behind her. She was terrified. There is no one behind me. Are you hungry and fainted? So you miss your parents? I fell silent. I didn't faint from hunger. I don't miss my parents. Seeing that I didn't speak, the young lady asked helplessly, how old are you? Don't eat the food in this trash can. Will my sister buy you a cake? The little fool and I chewed on the food, but did not respond to her. The young lady sighed, little friend, stay here and don't go. I'll buy you something delicious later. It took about 20 minutes. I saw her again. She was carrying a big box of beautiful pastries, painted with princess dresses, roast chicken, and other delicious oily food. "Little friend, eat this." The young lady put the food in my hand, then took out her mobile phone and dialed, "Hello? Is this 110? I saw 2 dirty little girls. They have no parents by their side, and they seem to have mental problems. Can you send someone to see them?" At this time, the siren of the police car sounded. The police got out of the car. The young lady was very surprised. "You came so fast." The policeman said, "These 2 little girls, they killed several people." The young lady looked back and gave me a fearful look. She never spoke again. I feel so sad. I didn't get to eat my sister's cake and roast chicken. I'm really sad. I killed someone. The court sentenced me to life in prison. But then, I was diagnosed with a mental illness. In the end, I was sent to a mental hospital by the relevant authorities. And the little fool, she didn't have a drop of human blood on her hands. She was sent to an orphanage. Inside the mental hospital, I sat in the empty room playing with my fingers, and my mother stood in front of me. She smiled and said, "I will always wait for you underground. When you die, I will still be your mother." I ignored her, turned over and lay on the bed, looking up at the ceiling. Then, I saw Dad again. He swooped down and touched my head. "Little beggar, I want you to give me a baby boy." I closed my eyes. Uncle John came again, and he said, "The dates are very big this year. I like to eat dates, little beggar. Hurry up and pick the dates and feed them to me." Jack followed up and said, "Little beggar, you are my wife. Why don't you sleep with me, but run to the city to live in a single room alone?" I grabbed my hair violently and yelled, "Get out! Get out of here!" Outside the room, the doctor sighed and said to the policeman, "She is very seriously ill. Her body is also very weak, covered with knife scars, cigarette butts, and traces of being bullied. She must have had a hard time before, right?" The policeman was silent for a long time. "Yes, she had a hard time, so she went crazy and killed 5 people in a row." After the 2 people outside the window left, a smile appeared on the corner of my mouth. Dad, Mom, Uncle John, Jack, and Catherine's adoptive father are all gone after a while. The sound of the loudspeaker in the room came. "It's lunchtime, everyone gathers in the cafeteria to eat." I laughed even louder. Mental hospitals are great. There's clean and delicious food, delicious and full, and no one touched my crotch. I'm going to stay here forever.